In some cases you will have the ability to use note number as an alternate modulation source. Well, congratulations to Korg on this one. I actually found out how this worked by accident. The parameter guide and the manual on this particular setting are an absolute waste. The idea is actually quite simple. Each note from C2 at the bottom end to C4 at the top end is actually given a number from 1 to 127, a MIDI number. If we use this setting to modulate a sound, the low and high numbers will see the maximum effect, and the numbers in the middle around middle C will see the least effect. I'm using the Unison Square lead patch, and on the P-Amp Basic tab you'll see a pan setting and an AMS that's already set to note number. Now if you change that to +99, what will happen is at the bottom end, that's C2, you'll have the volume panned to one side. At the top end it'll be panned completely to the other side, and in the middle it'll be in the middle. Now you won't hear this if I do it on my keyboards because I've only got a mono microphone on the phone that I'm using as a camera, but it's quite a neat little effect that you can actually play the keys and they'll pan from left to right. And you have similar settings that you can use note numbers and AMS on with effects and filters, for instance. A note number that will give you a more pronounced effect the further away you get from middle C. There are a limited number of effects and settings that can be set to react to this note number idea, and this panning effect was the most obvious case I could find where the note number had an effect. And if you can get more of a radical sound using some of the other settings, please let me know. I'd be very interested to see how it reacts, if at all. Apart from the AMS mixer settings, which I'm deliberately saving for a big finale, the rest of the AMS sources are only of use to you if you have another synth or a control surface that can send the relevant MIDI messages to the Kross. In the next set of videos I'll show how the Kross works with a controller synth acting as a MIDI master controller, and how the rest of the AMS sources that are available work. After this I'll delve into the AMS mixers, which allow you to mix AMS sources, and I'll also explain where and why you might want to use them by helping you to design the ultimate rock guitar and lead synth sound. But the next port of call will be DMOD. Now I've already said that dynamic modulation, or DMOD, is really not much more than AMS being used on the synth's effects. And indeed most of the hardware and MIDI controls that you can use to change settings on a program can also be used to change different settings within Master Effects and Insert Effects. I'm going to talk about DMOD, and I'll show how DMOD sources work with the Bright Piano preset. Now I've chosen this because it's a fairly basic sound with not much happening in terms of effects. I've started by pressing the menu key and scrolled down to the PMFX setting. Now the Master Effects can be adjusted in the setup page. In this particular instance, turn off the chorus so that all you're hearing is the reverb. This is done by tabbing to the small square next to the number 1 and turning the dial. Use the arrow buttons to tab across and set the return on the reverb to 127 so that we have all of the reverb going through the preset. So it should now sound a little bit bigger. Now use the Page Plus button to tab across to the MFX2 setting and change the reverb time to 10 seconds. Let's give it a really big wide, and you hear that 10-second reverb. Use the arrow buttons to tab down and change the wet dry mix to dry and the amount to +100. Now set the SRC, or source control, to velocity. If you play a note really gently, as you play with more velocity you'll notice that the effect really cuts in, and the harder you hit it, the faster you hit it, the longer that reverb. I've changed the setting to expressive velocity, and it's only at the extreme end that you're actually getting the full amount of reverb coming through. If you set the source to pitch bend and bend the note, as the note changes you'll hear the reverb mix change and it will become more pronounced. So it's only at the top end you'll hear that big full-on reverb. Mod wheel. Working in the same way as the pitch wheel. As you work your way through the effects, both master and insert, you'll see that there are vast numbers of different controls that you can set on each of them and that you can change on the fly using foot controls, the wheels, switches and MIDI controller messages. Also, as with AMS sources, since they can be controlled by MIDI CC messages, you can even control the effects settings from another synth. One setting that I haven't explained before is the gate settings. Now, if you set the gate setting to gate or the SRC setting to gate 1, now if you set the gate setting to SRC 1, as soon as you take your hands off that keyboard, that reverb is gated. It's cut short and stopped dead in its tracks. Really neat effect. Now synths are digital and so they tend not to be noisy when they aren't being played. However, a gate can be a neat effect and it will abruptly cut short a sound, as we'll see. Now you need to have a bit of a mess and a play with the different gate settings, but there's a gate 1, a gate 1 plus D, which is for damper, a gate 2 and a gate 2 plus D, gate 2 plus damper. Now the settings are very slightly different, but once you start using the damper pedal, you hear a slight difference as I've got the damper pedal depressed, in that the effect doesn't cut in. Till I take my foot off the damper pedal. So there's some quite interesting little things that you can do with those gate settings. And particularly on something like a flanger, where a flanger is making that real whooshing jet flange sound. If you use that to gate it, you can create some really neat stuttering effects. So have a play with it. See what you think, but it's a nice idea.